Edwin, what's happening, brother?
Hey, dude, what's going on?
Man, we're both in this kind of winter vortex here, but it sounds like I'm making my way out, but you aren't.
No, I mean, New York is still there. Like, snow usually only lasts like 3 days in New York at most. It's been 3 weeks. So it's the grossest
Oh,
snow
yeah, yeah.
that's ever existed in human
Mm,
experience. It's the grossest snow
mm.
is today in New
Are
York.
you from New York, or did you matriculate to New York?
No, I'm a New Yorker through and through. Been here most of my life, and so yeah, I've seen the city change a lot.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe
Yeah,
that.
but yeah, no, but it's still a good time.
Yeah.
I still love it though.
Yeah. Have you ever considered leaving, or is it just like, there's no way? I couldn't imagine living somewhere other than New York City.
Yeah, I think New Yorkers always get the pull to go to warm places like California
There's a
and
big
stuff.
pipeline of Ohioans that go to Florida.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like New York has like a you always have an LA phase where you're thinking about moving to LA
Hmm,
maybe,
hmm.
and so yes, I went through that in the early 2000s.
Well, we got a real New York experience. There's a police car in the background
Oh yeah,
there. Yeah.
sorry about that. Yeah, see
So
things I
it's
can't.
all good, man. Well, Edwin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of who you are and what you've been up to over the last handful of years?
Sure. So, hi, I'm Edwin. Edwin Endlich. I am the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer at Wysh here in New York, which is, a life insurance company at its core.
Hmm.
Uh, and, I, I took a very strange way to get here in terms of how I got here in my life. I actually started when I left college, dreaming of being a TV writer, and ended up leaving Emerson College to go work at Dave Letterman
How did how did
for a
how'd
few.
that happen? Getting to Letterman?
We had a kind of like a internship feeder program going from Emerson College to his production company called Worldwide Pants, and so I was fortunate enough that I was in sort of like the comedy troupe, which just sounds so nerdy, but just go with me here. But in schools in like art schools, like Emerson, like the comedy scene is like your sports teams.
Oh,
Uh,
you're the
yeah, like
celebrities.
those are the kids that people look up to. That like going and seeing comedy shows, especially at Emerson College, is like a religion to us. We are very proud of all of our alumni,
Mm,
uh, and so yeah, I'm a big advocate for the school, but also coming out of that school that gave me kind of at least a few internship opportunities that I could kind of move into, which was really fortunate, which is nice.
mm.
So that's how I kind of got from Emerson into the late night TV world, where I spent 3 years working at Dave Letterman, starting at the very bottom, and enjoying that. And then I moved from there to Comedy Central to work on a few different projects there, and then Dave Chappelle. This is back in like 2004
Okay.
ish. All right, so we're going way back, guys.
Yeah,
Go with me.
yeah.
Okay. So Dave Chappelle decides he's going to not come back for season 3 of the
Right,
Chappelle Show.
right.
He just like threw Comedy Central into a tizzy,
Mm,
and so many shows that were there, that were in development, that were happening. Uh, they Everyone got sent home with kind of like, we don't know if you're coming back or
was
not.
th
We just need
was
to
that
kind of.
because Chappelle's show was, like, so profitable, it was paying for, like, all this other stuff, or it was just, like, fear around the whole network?
It was fear around the whole network
Mm,
of like, what would happen if, like, he doesn't come back. What would he need to be wooed
mhm,
to come back? How much would we need to pull together as a network? So it just felt like an earthquake hit the offices there,
mm,
and uh, and I was like the like kid in the room
right.
when all of this was going on, and they felt so bad for me that I was, being sent home without kind of, a job to come back to, that they said, "Hey, listen, we've heard of this new thing called YouTube that's coming out, and there are a lot of companies out there who want to make funny videos on it, and they called Comedy Central. So brands like Taco Bell, Coca-Cola, a lot of those brands were calling Comedy Central to ask for writers
Mm.
to come and write short films that would be on YouTube. So they'd be like their commercials at the time because no one knew how YouTube was going to work.
Interesting.
And so the team at Comedy Central ended up putting me up as their person to go to a marketing agency to write for Taco Bell and Coca-Cola. And that's kind of how I got into marketing. And
Whoa.
then, yeah, so then I just started as a writer and just moved around to different advertising agencies, moved all the way up to, creative director, and on some of the world's biggest brands, did a bunch of Super Bowl commercials, got to have a lot of fun in the ad world. And then I had a friend who was starting a new company. He's an entrepreneur at heart, Alex Metjenik, and was starting a fintech. And it was right when crypto was really coming online, and it was just like the world was our oyster. And it was a fintech called Wysh, uh, WYSH. And I said, I'll come with you, and we'll start this thing. And that's where I've been for almost 6 years now.
Wow. Take me back to the beginning. What was life like as I'm guessing, like a 21-year-old and you're working on the Late Show? Like what was that like where you're probably seeing these very famous people, this show that seems larger than life at that point in time. Like how was that experience for you?
It was amazing. And, I was fortunate, like, that Dave Letterman is kooky and an eccentric character, but really loved his staff and his employees. He really took care of everyone, even when people got sick. They would get notes from their doctor saying someone has picked up all your treatment. You don't
Mm,
know anything. And we would find out that Dave had his team take care of that for you. Things like
mm.
that were always stories that people were passing around
Well, that's
about.
not exactly the norm in show business, is it? I mean,
Oh,
we
sure.
heard about the whole Ellen DeGeneres. I have no idea if it's true or not, but the
Yeah.
rumor was
No,
that
this was
very
one of
nice
those
in
situations.
public, but not nice private.
Yeah, and I also almost feel like he was the opposite in a way of, like, I think people sort of imagined he would be kind of like a bitter, kind of grumpy guy, and yet in reality he was incredibly warm and caring, and we really enjoyed that. But it was also in a great grad school to go into when it comes down to just the pace of working on a show like that.
Five shows a week, is that what it is?
It would be 5 shows a week, two on Thursday. So we were off on Fridays.
Oh, so what are you doing? Like at 8 o'clock and then like at 11 o'clock, something like that, or?
We would be doing what we'd usually, we would shoot to tape, which means like we would probably shoot at like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And that gave us around 5 hours if we needed to make any edits, to make any changes to the footage that's going to
I
air
got it.
that.
I
So you
got it.
had some time. So then on Thursdays we do, I think it was like at 2 o'clock, and then we would shoot again at 5 o'clock with a whole new audience, and have to get them in and out, which was always fun. And yeah, so it was just an incredible pace. The people there were great. The celebrities who came in, there was always you know there was always so much, drama around could you look them in the eye or not, or and it
Yeah.
was
Like, is this
and
person, going to be pleasant to us or not, sort of thing.
totally, and it was always, the people who you thought were going to be high maintenance weren't, and the people who shouldn't have been high maintenance were.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's sort of like all my expectations were met, that like someone like Tom Cruise is uh incredibly easygoing,
Mhm.
and yet someone like a Paris Hilton is the hardest person to
Mm. I
manage.
wonder I wonder if that's like a celebrity Dunning-Kruger effect where, like, right when you get famous, you think that you're, like, the most important thing in the world, and then, like, as time goes on and you become Tom Cruise, you're just, like, it's just a job. Just so happens that you know me for my
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. And they just start to maybe chill out a little bit, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
But yeah, but it definitely met all my expectations. And it was actually, even just to go back for like 2 seconds, I swear, was that I moved to New York the day before September 11th,
Mm,
2001. So this was September 10th, 2001. I am unpacking boxes in my apartment, and my dad calls and says, "Turn on the news." Uh, and
crazy.
I turn on the news, and of course, I'm seeing what people think is an accident happened,
Mm,
and a plane uh, lost control and crashed into a building
mm.
in New York. And so that was literally my first day of being there after moving in, and then having to kind of experience New York pretty much only from September 11th
Well,
on.
geez.
You know,
I'm sure
like
mom's like, come home. This
oh, of
city's
course,
crazy.
everyone under 25, all of our parents were saying, "You're out of there,"
Yeah.
because and we also didn't know what New York was going to be.
Right.
Like, were there going to be car bombs for the next 6 years every
Right.
day? Like, we had no idea what New York was going to be like. And I had this internship lined up at Dave Letterman, uh, and it ended up that Dave Letterman was one of the first shows to come back
Mm.
as a live, to tape show. Was, I think, I want to say maybe October 12th was the first show he came back on. Him and Dan Rather were on, and I was able to sort of be there, uh, kind of starting out, and sort of starting to get my footing of starting my internship right when that show came back on the air, which was another crazy experience as well, because you were also dealing with you know New York changing so much
Right.
at the time,
Right.
and also being your life was changing so much as coming out of college, so it just felt like there's a book here for sure.
Yeah. No, so what was like a typical day like? Because you're saying that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're producing a show essentially like, well, at least Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you're producing a show in like 24 hours with
Sure.
some of the most,
Yep.
important people in the world, right? You said Paris
Yep.
Hilton's coming in. Paris doesn't want like her limo not to be there, right? So it's like
Yeah.
there's a lot of logistics before you even get to like shooting, right? And planning and
Oh,
everything.
absolutely.
So what was that
Yeah.
like?
Well, the great thing was, and again, it's all credit to Dave, is that he had, I would want to say at least 50% of his staff was still there from the morning show he did at
Mm,
NBC in the very early
mm,
80s, in terms of he had a team that has been with him for a long time. And so
mm,
by the time I was there, it was such a well-oiled machine that it was just moved like clockwork, which was great. But in terms of, there was always a very clear and steady routine, like you said, of when you, the team comes in early in the week. So when you come in on a Monday, there was, Dave and his floor. It's the 12th floor. My God, it's been like 20 years now. So so he and his staff of probably his head writers, who were the Stangles, two brothers at the time, and they would kind of hole up for the first part of the day and really kind of hone the show of what they want to do, pitch Dave ideas, pitch Dave concepts, and really kind of get the show in a place where he feels comfortable. And then other types of writers start coming in, pitching ideas, which is kind of fairly common now. Like a lot of shows, like Dave Letterman, SNL, they kind of uh, the Tonight Show, a lot of these old establishment shows, they really still have created the template that is used today
mhm,
on most shows, even like a thing like Fallon. obviously SNL today continues with the same schedule that they've had for like 45 years, which is that like, mix of small circle and big circles
Okay.
of teams. And so it usually just flexes from small to big throughout the entire day in terms of head writers and Dave, the larger group, and then it becomes the even larger staff outside of that. Of even I even spent time in the audience department because Dave had a very particular audience sound
Okay.
he loved, which was a very specific male to female ratio
Oh, okay.
he liked. And also, he really was very sensitive to wanting his audience to be really excited to be there, and really like he fed off that energy, which who doesn't? But I think like there are a lot of like stand-ups who are comfortable turning an audience around
Mm.
if they're kind of not there yet. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like people who thrive in getting an audience on board with them,
Mm.
like a Louis C.K. and things like that. Like they really love to like bring an audience along. Dave's not like that,
Mm.
and really like uh, is hopeful that when he walks out on stage, people are already saying, "This is a great
Yeah.
time." Like he didn't have to get through half an hour of material to get people to say this is good. So he had an entire audience department, literally a team of 30 something people whose job was to make sure that audience coming in was excited to be there and sounded like what he wanted it to sound like.
Wow, that's really fascinating. So
Yeah,
what you say writing, right? So like what are we writing? Maybe talk me through like the segments of the show. I've watched the show, I'm sure 15 times, but I can't like exactly like picture where the segments are and what they're writing for. And of course there's like a guest and we're going to talk to them. Is that
sure.
Dave writing those jokes and interplays? Like how's that work?
Yeah, nowadays, or at least kind of like where it was when I was there, there's really kind of like a very structured, show, which means like there's like 2 minutes when Dave, comes out and does a monologue,
Monologue, yeah.
and when he speaks, and he has a writer who just delivers that to him
Mm.
every day, and they have worked together forever.
Mhm.
So he has a monologue writer who does that. Then when he gets to the desk, he will do another 2 minute segment, usually with Paul Schaefer, who's on piano at the time. And that could be a banter segment, could have a prop involved into it, could be a remote throw to some of the characters that they had on the show, usually based on pop
I was
culture.
going to say, are we
Something,
doing like current events? Is
yeah, yeah. So usually something that it connected to current
Is it
events.
just me, or am I reading these shows that they've just, like, kind of all sorta drifted political? Like, do you remember politics being a big part when you were doing it? Because it just feels like now the late night shows, like, they have a team. That's my sense on it. I don't really watch them, but that's kinda how
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel.
Yeah, no, I think no one there was ever talking about what is our stance,
Mm,
what is our um, like who are we in the political discussion.
yeah,
Nobody talked like that, and they do now.
yeah,
Like shows really have to say, who are we in this? Do we have a role? And I think like the Daily Show obviously changed a lot of how comedy can be used to inform,
mhm,
and it sort of went from there. And I think the Saturday Night Live as well sort of paved the way for how these entertainment shows that all of a sudden became how people learned about current events
mhm,
and got engaged with politics and learned about politicians was through comedy. And I think it slowly started to become more and more serious for these comedy institutions to be very clear on where do you stand,
yeah,
what is your position here. And I'm fortunate maybe that I was there at a time where that was never talked about. It was if it's funny, we go with it.
mhm,
If it made Dave uncomfortable, he loved it. If it would make the network uncomfortable, he loved it. Things like that were always always asked for, but it was never um, as, antagonistic as it is today, where it felt like we're about to make half our audience upset
Mhm.
tonight with this joke.
Yeah. Right. Now it also feels like I don't know, some shows or people almost feel like they have to say something about an event that happened. And it's like if we don't say something, like we're not addressing it and we're not on the right side of this. And I don't know. I don't feel like that. Like, again, if I watch a movie, it's like I don't need you guys to make a political statement. I just want to see the movie. Same thing with
Yeah.
like the football team. Like I don't it does we don't need to make the political statement, like unless you really feel the desire to do so. I just want to watch a football game.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you get to Comedy Central after that? And what's life like there? Are you working on one show or are you working on multiple shows?
So when I left Dave Letterman to, because a friend of mine was going to Comedy Central, which is where I always wanted to go.
Is that like the pinnacle of like comedic?
I think for everyone in their early 20s, that's when like South Park was at its height. Dave Chappelle had just come out. Things were just, and like cable was now becoming not so niche. Like it seemed like by that point everyone had Comedy
Yeah,
Central, not just like your rich friend.
yeah.
uh, which like I felt like cable was when I was really young. Only certain houses had cable,
Hmm.
but by the time that like I was at Comedy Central, it was pretty much everywhere. And so that's where we all wanted to work. We all felt like that was the pinnacle. um, I remember the first day I had my email address that like at Comedy Central, and I just like remember like literally tearing up, going like, Where do I go from here?
Yeah.
Like this
Right.
is
This is
it.
the
This is
top.
what I wanted." And like I did it. I made it. I made it. And like and so everyone was just so excited to be there. And it was really like the Wild West of comedy at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was very young. I remember John Mulaney and Nick Kroll were children. They were my age
Mm-hmm.
at the time. And they were in a similar spot where I think John was an assistant there during the day, and then would work on his comedy at
Mm.
night. So there was this like group of low tier people at Comedy Central that turned out to be very successful, that I was so excited that I got a chance to meet and see every day. So there was this like very much excitement around the digital space. No one knew what YouTube was going to be. No one knew if ComedyCentral.com was going to be the most important thing at the
Mm-hmm.
network. So they allowed us to work on that, and had, could make crazy decisions of what we would want to do. People were really excited because the internet was allowing us to do kind of untimed comedy, like meaning like we didn't have to work with a 23-minute
Yeah.
our script in terms of, and leaving space for commercials, and knowing that it has to end at this point. Like you could make a YouTube video that's 4 minutes and 8 seconds, because that's how long it needs to be, as funny as it could be.
Mm.
Was really exciting.
Yeah.
And I felt at that point that was like groundbreaking. The fact that we could write a 4 minute and 8 second video
Mm-hmm.
that did not have to follow any sort of broadcast rules. We could say anything we want. We
Oh, that's true.
could,
Yeah, you could curse and
yeah, like there was like, everyone was like, what? Like this is going to change everything. And it did, uh, which was great. But I also think there were some timeless types of lessons we learned in that process of like still what makes uh, great content is kind of timeless, and that we weren't the first to think of these jokes or these cadences or these ideas. Things have been around a long time.
mm. So interesting. So what were you working on one project or how did that work? Like were
Yeah,
you
so
were
I was
attempting to become a writer on a show? Like maybe just talk me through what your goal was and what they had you working on.
Yeah, so I was brought in to work on an animated show called Odd Todd, which was a web short. Again, like it existed online. Um, and it was like kind of in that age of that hand-drawn animated style, almost like a Dr. Cat style, which is also dating me to like, early aughts. And Odd Todd, which was done by Todd Rosenberg, was picked up at Comedy Central, and they were really trying to make these like breakout web cartoons
Got it.
into traditional half hour shows. Like, can we take a web cartoon and make that into South Park? Because South Park kind of was the last thing that was viral before the internet.
Mm,
South Park started as a shareable video cassette that
mm,
went around, and it was just a Christmas episode with cut out, stop motion, and it was just passed around forever until finally someone got it in the right hands. So Comedy Central kind of looked for those kind of like, what is that version that's happening now online?
I see.
And they found things like Odd Todd, and so they spun up a team of such great people. Oh my God, we had A.D. Miles, who is the head writer for Fallon. And is incredibly talented in Wet Hot American Summer. We had Scott Dickers, who was the founder of The Onion,
Mm,
uh, was on the show. We had head writers from Beavis and Butthead were there. We was just like it for this web cartoon. That was just so wild to me. So I was like so excited to be kind of that you know like a writer's assistant. And my dream was just to get in the room. Can I get in the room
mm-hmm.
with these people that I idolized? And there was a very new writer there, um, Josh Friedman, who's also very, very cool and successful now. And he was just starting out, and he was supposed to be taking room notes in the room, and him and Todd hit it off, like the head guy Todd, and so he needed someone to take room notes for him, and I was like, I will do it. And so that was my way in the room,
There you go.
was to kind of like offer myself up, like I will absolutely sit in the corner and just take room notes, which now I think is probably all recorded
Yeah.
in AI
Yep. Yep. Probably.
now, so I don't even know if that job exists anymore, taking room notes. But and that's really was my life there for a while, was just supporting this incredible group of writers to get this show off the ground. And then like the Dave Chappelle drama kind of happened, and that really put kind of a kibosh on a lot of shows in development there. And that show ended up becoming like a web only show for Comedy Central. It was only on comedycentral.com.
Mm-hmm.
The shows that we helped produce, and I moved into advertising.
Mm. Okay, so are you thinking? Well, maybe just tell me about the Dave Chappelle situation. What do you remember about that? I mean, so I'm an Ohioan, and he lives, in our backyard
Sure.
in Yellow Springs. People see him all the time in Yellow Springs. What do you remember about like that, and like what stands out to you?
I think there was uh, a hard to explain adoration there was in the comedy world for what he was doing
Mm-hmm.
in his sketch show.
Well, I,
There was
I
just,
I agree. When I was a kid, that was like it was head and shoulders above anything else that I thought was on TV for
yeah,
me.
it just seemed to be the right thing at the right time. And it was groundbreaking in so many ways, but just how it approached race, how it approached comedy and culture and class divide, and just like brought humor to areas that people never thought could be made funny, were now game.
Mm-hmm.
And things were now on the table for jokes, that everyone said there's just no way you could make that funny. He found a way to make it funny. And so in the comedy world, and me being very young and like hopeful to be a part of it, he was at the very top of everyone's list. And I think that also was something he was feeling at the time,
Well,
and he talks about that there was a lot of, he felt pressure, that he was getting a lot of adoration he was feeling when he would, show up at Comedy Cellar to do, something. Crowd just goes crazy in ways that, he had never seen before. All the comics parting so that he could walk on, because everyone just felt like you were doing something special. You are our generation's Carlin,
mm,
our Pryor, our Robin Williams. Kind of felt like we hadn't had that sort of person in comedy, uh, for like a generation, it almost felt like.
hmm
And he was kind of the heir apparent for us, that was going to be the groundbreaking comedian, that was going to be what everyone is chasing. And that was palpable in the halls of Comedy Central.
mm,
Was his poster was everywhere. People were stealing things off of shoots, uh,
mm,
because that prop may be famous someday. And like, you know what I mean? Like, you could just imagine, like, everything was a memento. Everyone wanted to say they worked on the show. Everyone wanted to say they took part in it. And to me, it was just in the air. It was in the water. It was everywhere in the city and in the halls of Comedy Central. Was just something special was happening. Uh, so when Dave vanished after season two, and he was supposed to come back to start filming season three, uh, and all of a sudden he was just gone and didn't show up to work, and no one could get in touch with him, and no one could, pinpoint what's going on. It was it was, I guess, scandalous. Is that
hmm
the way? It
yeah,
was just like, it was all anyone could talk about.
yeah.
It was all
That's what
anyone
that's what
could,
I remember is that those
you know,
Dave Chappelle's gone crazy. He's left, and we don't know
yes.
where he is. And
And even that, like, looking back, like, how wild is that, that was like top news in what it felt like, if you were in my age bracket at that time, that was headline news to you, is that Dave Chappelle had lost his mind, and I think he's gone to Africa, and he won't come back unless someone gives him a check for $50 million. And he's got this demand or this demand. No, that's just a rumor. They're making that up. He's just overwhelmed. He had a panic attack. No, it's a nervous breakdown. No, it's like, so it's just like rumors were going around like crazy. But this was like our Area 51.
yeah,
Like, every conspiracy theory was going around on what was going on there, and really the only people who knew, obviously, was Dave, number one, Neil Brennan, his writing partner, and the co-genius behind the show. Those were really the only two who knew what was happening that day, but everyone thought they had the inside scoop
right.
of what was going on. Everyone thought they had one more piece of information, that was probably not true.
Mm. So then, as sort of he does come back and negotiations are going, but then they break down, is that when Comedy Central's like, ooh, like we thought we had Jordan on the team and we thought we were gonna go on another run, but like we don't
Yeah.
have Jordan on the team anymore. So like maybe we need to kind of break this thing down and rebuild.
Yeah, exactly that. They really did feel like, or at least it felt to us at the very junior rungs at Comedy Central, that they that the executives who allowed that to happen were in a lot of trouble.
Mm,
Some were replaced, some were demoted, some were shuffled or like around. Leadership was very upset that that was allowed to happen.
just that
Like,
the organization was able to grow so big.
yeah, and that they weren't able to get their star player to come
I
back,
see.
was also just, there was a lot of anger, a lot of animosity there, a
I
lot of
see.
finger pointing.
I
Whose
see.
fault was this? And that's also where I think Dave talks about a lot, being like, it's so much easier to say he went crazy, especially if you were an executive at Comedy Central.
True. If you were to blame or maybe you were
Yes.
rude or difficult to Dave, like
Yeah, you did not want to say you did not create the environment for him to be creative,
mm, yeah,
and no one wanted to get that finger pointed to them. So they just said, "No, he's crazy."
yeah.
And how much easier is it to say that? That means I get no blame. I like, it's all on Dave's fault. And Dave, talks about that it was so much easier for everyone to just use that as the talking point, versus what he was really feeling. So the but internally at Comedy Central, for those of us who were working there, there was a sense that they gathered people into rooms and just kind of said, we are taking a pause on this show that's currently in development. We're sending everybody home. You'll know by Friday if the show's going to be returning or not.
Mm.
That's what so many people got told
Mm.
as they looked to either shore up their existing programming. And I think they were also interested in maybe trying to get another star player
Mm.
to replace
I see.
Dave was going to require them to have a lot of negotiating power, meaning they had a lot of cash on hand. So I also think that they needed to shore up their expenses
Mm.
and their books
Mm-hmm.
to say, if we want to get, uh, you know, a Carlos Mencia to do a crazy big deal for us, or if we want the Key and Peele next chapter of Comedy Central, we need to really put together a very compelling package for them.
Mm.
And we can't have shows we're not 100% sure about anymore.
Right. It makes sense, also from a budgeting perspective. If, you think you're going to have one more leg of the Eras tour and you're like, we're going to make, $1 billion on this tour. And then Taylor's like,
Yeah,
hey, I'm not doing that tour. You're like, we have a lot of cost built up into this that we're
yeah,
expecting
yeah.
a lot of
We
revenue.
promised a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now we have to readjust the books on what to expect next year. And even at that point, they hadn't even seen the DVD sales for Chappelle's show yet.
Yeah.
That was like still not even a thing
Yeah.
yet. So even that, so they really just felt like we don't really have much if he doesn't come back. They had South Park and the South Park merchandise,
Mm.
which was we also forget was insane
Mm.
at the time.
So you get offered this situation with YouTube. So you go to a
Yeah.
marketing agency that has an angle on helping these big brands put content out.
Yeah, so it was this interesting world in the early 2000s, which was like brands would hire an advertising agency,
Yep.
and then during that time they would also hire like a digital advertising
Hmm.
agency. So an advertising agency that understood literally Friendster, MySpace. These are things that were still like that brands were still trying to figure out, should we be there. Facebook was still only accessible to people with I think when I was working on Facebook work, it was still only Ivy League edu
I
addresses,
see. I see.
was the only people who could get a Facebook account. And so they would hire a specific agency that just understood the digital space, that understood this thing called YouTube. And those were the agencies I went to work for.
Mm.
And nowadays, those are all just called the advertising
Hmm.
agency. So now the big giant companies do both of those things now.
Hmm. So, what was someone like you said, Taco Bell? What were they attempting to do? They're trying to create content that can be put out on YouTube, and they're hoping people just like organically watch it. Is that what the goal was? Like to get viewership?
Yeah, like their goal, or what we thought the internet was. This is what we thought would happen, is that let's create a video series of uh, a hippo at Taco Bell, and we'll call him Hippo Bell. And he bursts into Taco Bell's and he eats things, and it's really funny. Uh, and we'll make a banner on websites when you're on CNN.com. At the very top of the website, a hippo will run across the screen and it'll reveal, see the series Hippo Bell. Click here.
Okay,
They would then click the banner, go to YouTube to watch this long form video of this, of a character, and then which would advertise the menu at Taco Bell. So it was all about like, let's have these online banners lead to long form content that people would find compelling and that would hopefully become long form commercials
Mm.
for us. And in a way, some of that process still exists today.
Hmm.
The YouTube content still exists. We now just in order to get people there, we no longer have to do those annoying pop-up banners that used to exist everywhere,
Hmm.
and just like, but yeah, so that was really what brands were looking for, and they were reaching out to comedy writers to say, what is our funny campaign idea
Hmm.
that we're going to do that is completely separate for anything we've ever done in advertising, that is its own thing. And we would just sit there in a room all day and just ideate on weird videos to make for our clients. And it was a really fun time, because you didn't know if you were successful or not, because the internet was so nascent,
Hmm.
that just making stuff, you were successful,
Mm.
which
Interesting.
I miss that
Yeah.
time. Just doing work was the goal.
Mm. So were those companies kind of seeking they probably didn't even understand what viral was, right? Like they weren't seeking virality. They were probably hopeful, right, that like they get some uptick, but a brand like Taco Bell, it's like, oh, we're up 0.4 of a point this quarter. Well, why is that? It's like, maybe it's our internet
Yeah,
ads.
yeah, exactly. Like that's what made it fun, was that as long as you just kind of felt like you could say it was the internet ad, or
They
it
would
could be
fund
the
it.
video
They
we
would
make.
fund it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then but nowadays, with click-through
Yeah.
rates and tracking and cookies and all that stuff, there's a lot more confidence in, did something actually help or get seen? It's not just the view counter, which that's all it was back in the
Mhm.
day. But yeah, they were like, I think it may have been like pre the word viral, maybe had it been coined yet, but there were some, you know, things like, it's like the SNL video, like a lazy Sunday, was one of the first YouTube videos that went really
Mm.
big. And that was the Andy Samberg rap, um, that kind of was like one of the early things of Lonely Island on SNL,
Mhm.
and that was like the first time really we started getting a lot more calls from clients saying, "Make us one of your
Yeah, yeah,
ads."
right. Yeah.
We want something that gets, no one had even heard of 1 million views before. That is
Mm.
like nowadays we say things with those type of numbers all the time. You talk to an influencer today who has a bath bomb, they'll say they get 1 million
Yeah.
views on their
Yep.
content. But man, back in the day when those early videos got 1 million views, we would all just look at each other and say, "That's everybody."
Yeah.
That means everyone watched this. That is insane. And now we know, no, that's not true. But the time we really felt, oh my God, 1 million views. It was like, yeah, it was like the Austin Powers, like $1 million.
Yeah.
It
That's
just seems so
yeah.
much.
So where does it go from there? Because clearly where we are now and where we were then is so different. Like, how did you see advertising evolve for these brands while you were at this agency?
Yeah, so we saw ourselves getting, when I first started, like I said, there was the advertising agency and the digital agency, and there was like here and here
Mhm.
in terms of what swagger they had, the budget they had, the respect they had in the industry, how much face time they got with clients. And slowly you started to see it go like this, where the digital agency was getting more and more budget, more and more time, more and more attention. Awards were starting to be one in advertising who loves awards. No one loves an award more than a creative director at an ad
Yep.
agency.
Yep.
There's like one award a day for us, and so all of a sudden, the digital agencies were getting more and more FaceTime and more
Mm.
prestige. Things like, and again, I'll date myself with just like what things were, but like, I'm not sure if you remember like Subservient Chicken.
I
It
don't
was
think
this
so.
like it was a really simple web app that you could control a chicken. Like it was just like very, very like silly, simple things that you could make online, that people were sharing and people were talking about, and they were doing that much more than they were with the TV commercial. And so all of a sudden, the teams I was leading and the teams I was part of were now becoming kind of like the starting team, or like the starting line of your ad campaign this year was going to be your digital creative team. And and I was very fortunate that I was kind of there during that shift away from that traditional, it's the guys who do the TV commercial, to it's the guys who do your online stuff.
Yeah.
um, and so that was kind of where we saw the shift start to happen, and the budget start to shift, and all of a sudden people needing, multiple touch points of an ad campaign, that there needed to be a website, there needed to be a long form video online,
Mm.
there need to be cut up into 6 second short form YouTube pre-rolls,
Yep.
that, like, sold it in 6 seconds, so when the skip now button came up, we already had got you, little things like that. That was our team knew how to do that, not the TV commercial team.
Well, yeah. I mean, how
Uh,
many brands now in 2026 will ever run a TV commercial? Like one in 1,000, maybe? Like you
yeah,
have to get to you probably have to get to like $100 million run rate to run a TV commercial, right? Is that, I don't know, something like that?
yes, at the well, like, in if you want that pop culture bomb that used to exist in advertising. We're talking the catchphrase everyone says, the Halloween costume people wear from like a Jake from State
Yep.
Farm. You
Yep.
know what I mean?
Right.
Like, if you
Right.
want that type of campaign, you are talking nine
Yeah.
figures. You
Well, there's
need,
only like
you need,
three types of companies that run ads now: drug companies, soda
mm,
companies, beer companies, insurance
yeah.
companies. That's about it.
Yeah, that's the big group. Cars would be
Cars,
the last
yes,
one,
definitely
and then
cars.
you got the big five.
Yep. There you go.
And so yeah, so you had like, yeah, you can't be a small business anymore with a kooky commercial that gets people singing your jingle. Like, nope, it's like those days are gone. You need $100 million if you want something that impactful. But there are more options than TV commercials than there've ever been.
Yeah.
If you've got a bar in Seattle, you could do a short video that appears on TikTok to just the people in
Yeah.
Seattle in a 3 mile, circle around the bar. And like, to them, they'd say that that's actually pretty
Yeah.
great for four thousand
Yeah.
dollars, versus doing a national ad campaign, that bar was never going to be able to do.
Well, there's also certain products that why would I advertise on somewhere where they can't purchase? Like we're
Mhm.
Amazon sellers, so Amazon has this thing where you can run your ads, your video ads, and I think they run through Tubi. I think they might
Mhm.
run through Amazon Prime too, but I think they mostly run through Tubi. And it at the end of it, it's like, here's a link, scan now to buy on Amazon. And literally, we ran this campaign. We had no one scan. There maybe like two people scanned it, and zero people bought. And I'm like, why
Yeah.
wouldn't we just run an Amazon PPC ad, guys? Like this doesn't make any sense. But yeah, a
Yeah.
bar that makes sense because it's like you have to call someone to action.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like there are still times where it can make sense, and times where it's a good tactic. But yes, without that big budget, you're it's a lot of waste, which in today's world you don't need.
Yeah,
You don't need anyone. You can hyper target now and exactly who you want and pay for all the people who cared.
yeah. So you said you did a Super Bowl ad. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, so I worked on Tide,
Okay.
uh, the detergent, for almost a decade, and that was one of the big Super Bowl TV commercial properties, and we were very excited about some of the work that we did for the Super Bowl, for them. And again, that's one of those uh, machines of, it takes 1,000 people to make a Super Bowl spot.
Really?
Uh,
1,000.
it,
Jeez.
yeah, like I think even just when, because the advertising agencies that do these are usually done at what we call a holding company, meaning like it's one company that owns like 50 ad agencies.
Oh, interesting.
And um, so for something like Tide, uh, you had so many ad agencies could have a shot at their idea being selected for the Super
Hmm.
Bowl.
So like how
And
does that work? Do they put out like a request for proposal? We're looking for ideas on the Super Bowl ad, and you got to submit something concrete to them that's like a the makings of the idea.
yeah, so in terms of there's the big advertising agency that has the Tide account.
Hmm.
They first put the call out to every creative who works at that company has a chance to share what their idea could
Got it.
be. And usually at that point it's in the form of a write up, maybe a slide where you have like a key visual and like a headline and like a
Hmm.
description of what you want the spot to be about or what the concept is. And then it even spreads outside of that. Now every advertising agency in that holding company of the big guy can also share their ideas and contribute.
Mm,
So you have PR companies, you have out of home advertising companies, event marketing companies. You've got
mm,
everybody sharing ideas of what could make for a great Super Bowl spot, and that all gets put through the filter of the creative leads at the big advertising agency. It's finally selected. They get down to 10, but I remember we were putting ideas out there for Super Bowl. I want to say June
so like
for yeah,
8
like
months in advance.
7 8 months ahead of time. We were panicked if we could get it done in time. Uh,
Jeez.
just because it's, even if you saw some of the commercials this year, so whether the Dunkin' commercials and things like that, when you're talking about six A-list celebrities getting on their calendars, getting an A-list director to do it, needing to shoot on location, not during hurricane season, on the beach,
Mm,
like sometimes it's a very tight window of time that's all going to work. And so you want to give yourself as many options as possible to pull this together.
mm,
Uh, and so the longer timeline you have to produce, the more options you
got
have.
it.
So that's why in June we were starting to get nervous, saying, "Well, now we only have one summer to pull this
Right,
together,
right.
and that's in the next 6 days." So we ended up doing our last one we did was the David Harbour uh, from Stranger Things, Pace Hopper. He did the Super Bowl spot. It's a Tide ad where he kind of walked into other commercials
Mm,
and saying, pretty much the idea was, if anyone is wearing clean clothes in any commercial during the Super Bowl, it's a Tide ad.
mm,
And so he would walk into other commercials and tout how clean everyone was. So there's a car commercial, a beer commercial, uh, everything. So like we worked with Bud Light, we worked with all these other brands, car companies, things like that, in order to go into that. Which those companies were super
yeah,
psyched
because you're
to
gonna
say,
throw them in there kind of for free, if you
yeah,
will.
yeah, now they get a Super Bowl spot, but it's really a Super Bowl spot for you. So it was really a way for us to get a lot of that intellectual property. Uh, uh, so yeah, it was a great idea, and yeah, there's always, similar to Dave Chappelle at advertising agencies, everyone says they came up with that idea.
Mhm, mhm.
So you have 1,000 people who all take credit for it's a Tide ad.
That's
But yeah, but that won all the awards that year too.
That's funny, man. So how did you end up transitioning into insurance? You do this long time horizon with all these big brands, and then some of them pretty exciting and cool brands too. Some of them, I'm sure you probably had your banking in there. That was like, all right, well, how am I going to pitch Chase? Sweet.
Mhm, sure.
Um, but you're transitioning into this insurance company, and really, it sounds to me like your career has always been in just comedy and production of commercials and digital video, things of that like. How do you decide, yes, this is the right thing for me?
Yeah, I think, a little bit of the uh, shift happened where I was tasked with. Do you remember the Tide Pod challenge that was happening
How many you
on?
can eat in 10 minutes? Yeah.
Yes, and it was like kids challenging each other to eat Tide
Yes,
Pods.
I vaguely remember it. I was not involved.
You never tried it? Thank
Yeah.
you. I and I was part of the team and was the creative lead for Make That Stop.
Mm. Well, it's almost like, I understand why they wanted that to stop because there's a big
Yeah.
liability thing, but you gotta say at some point, that's pretty good press. Everybody's talking about Tide Pods, you know?
It's true. Like now, the only pod is a Tide
Yeah,
Pod,
pretty much, yeah.
and that physical thing is now a Tide Pod, similar to like a Kleenex or like a Band Aid.
Mhm.
This thing, even if it's not Tide, will be called a Tide Pod. Um, but they were, as a very trusted, like, and regulated by the FDA brand, it was very important for them to do everything they could to stop kids from eating it. And by that point, we weren't sure if, like, if a kid dies from this company has to fold.
Oh, boy.
Like it's like, you know what I mean? Like those are the discussions that are happening in a boardroom,
Yeah.
saying if a child dies, Tide has to vanish.
Jeez.
There will be no coming back from that. People will walk by shelves forever and say, that's the thing that killed that kid. So all of that was a lot of the intensity around we really need to stop kids from eating Tide Pods.
Mhm.
And so we ended up pitching to them to the Procter and Gamble team at Tide. You could put out a very stiff press release that says, Tide CEO took out a full page ad in the Wall Street Journal admonishing teens for eating Tide Pods. It's like, I'm not sure you're going to get the response you want
Mhm.
from that. Like when the teacher says stop, usually that means you're doing something right as a kid. And so we said, well, what if we get someone like a Rob Gronkowski, Gronk, who we had worked with Tide before, was kind of known for not being that bright.
Yeah, right.
Uh, and what if he says, even I know this is a dumb idea? And let him like record something on his phone that it looks like it's from him in his house walking through like a laundry room that he's doing a little laundry and just saying, what the hell is going on? Like, why would anyone do that? And then we'll just release that. That is our statement, is this homemade video from Rob Gronkowski. And we ended up doing that instead.
Mm.
And that ended up uh, you know being picked up in so many places. And we did see a lot of, like, humor around, like, now that it's talked about, it's not as funny. Now it's not a niche thing. And sort of like, how do we tip the scale to make it not cool
Yeah.
anymore on purpose? And so, yeah, so, the other option was to like have like a group of grandmothers do it, because when grandmothers do it, it can't be cool.
Mhm.
Like when they come on Facebook or something.
Mhm.
Uh, but that really was like one of the last ad campaigns I worked on that I was so burnt out on that
Mm.
I needed a change.
Mm.
I needed a break. I think I was so kind of like uh so focused on people eating Tide Pods. But that also got me a phone call from a friend of mine who's saying, you took something very serious, which is could be one of the most serious things. You took a potential poisoning that was happening among our youth and make it funny to uh, to change people's behavior.
Mm.
Uh, and they felt I'd done that well. And they said, we're starting a life insurance company, which is very traditionally very serious,
Mhm.
very buttoned up, very stodgy.
Mhm.
It's for your grandparents. It's a morbid, scary thing to talk about. can you come lead our marketing, and can you make this more interesting and more creative than it's been talked about before?
Mm.
And so from the Tide Pod Challenge is how I got the phone call to, can you do that again for a life insurance company?
Mm.
And I said, good challenge. Okay, let me see what I can do. And, they gave me the freedom to say, you want to name the company? You want to, start from scratch, come up with the brand colors, come up with the aesthetic, come up with the entire concept of the company.
Mm.
Uh, can be on the table, and not a lot of advertisers and creatives ever get a chance to say, we're at the so far at the beginning of a company's life. You never get that shot to say, here's what I want to call it, and here's what I want the story to be.
Mm.
And that was something a creative director can't pass up.
Yeah.
You have to say yes to those.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And that was Wysh. And so they brought me in, and I spent a year with a great team coming up with an idea of how to look at life insurance a little bit differently.
Mm.
And that is so we spent the year. And finally, that's where we came up with the idea, one, to call it Wysh, and two, that we would make a life insurance company that is all about having you make a wish for what you want to happen if anything happens to you.
Mm.
And that is, I want uh, a famous band to play my funeral. I want my house to be all paid off and for my family to live there without any expenses.
Mm.
I want my kids to go to college and never have to worry about it. And you could make the wishes you want for what you want to happen.
Mm.
And we will put together a life insurance policy that's about that and kind of personalized to you, and really put together a team as well who feels confident they could actually make that happen for you.
Mm.
Uh, and so we built a team of wish granters down in North Carolina, and their job is to ensure that the wishes you make can actually happen, can
Mm.
actually come true. We've had things like people say they want to have their ashes tossed into a volcano was somebody's wish. I remember this day, and us having to find out, is that legal?
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like a legal thing. Like what am I
Yeah,
gonna? I
like
got to put them inside something. So now I'm throwing a ball of plastic into this.
yeah,
Bag.
yeah. So now, is it trash? Is it actually and you're actually not supposed to sprinkle ashes like on private property, things like that. Like that is considered like a biohazard.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And yeah, so we had to do research like, okay, we need to know, is there a volcano on private property that we could get permission to drop eco-friendly packaging of this into, because we know we couldn't do it on any sort of state-owned or federal-owned property. We tried that, got turned down, and so like that was our days. We're like asking
Mm.
these questions of like, could we get this? And um, and some of the times also allowing the customers that were asking for these, if we could, let them know that the team is working on it. And we just saw people for the first time sharing uh, things about their life insurance policy that no one had ever thought was shareable before.
Mm.
All of a sudden, people would be sitting at brunch saying, "Ah, I got an email from my life insurance company. They're trying to figure out if Fleetwood Mac can play my funeral,"
Mm.
which we did, and trying to figure out how could we get Fleetwood Mac to play a funeral. What would have to be true? Could it just be Stevie Nicks? But that's not technically.
It's
But
true.
if it's Stevie and two others. Do you need all four to call it
Mm.
Fleetwood
Well,
Mac?
one thing I could probably tell you is the life insurance policy needs to go up. This needs to be 20 million, buddy.
Exactly. So we would just kind of like, so we put together this experience online that you could go get a life insurance without ever talking to a doctor. You never had to go through all of the headaches that used to come with life insurance. You do it all in 10 minutes online. You make your wishes. You find out how much that policy is going to be. They start at like $5 a
Mm.
month for some of our policies. Of course, like you said, you want to go up to like $2.5 million policy because you want to do something crazy. That could be $100 a month, and that's fine. But that's your wish.
Hmm.
But we always felt like we had also learned that people, when times get tough, something like a life insurance policy is the first thing people give up,
Right.
because it's not something you think is for
Hmm.
you. It's for someone else, and it's also not that cool. So we really tried to say, uh, what could we do to make it something that you would want to keep? And so, so this concept of wish became really powerful. And then our second chapter became, once we started seeing a lot of people taking out what we would call like a micro policy. Like people were taking out, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 policies, not millions of dollar
Hmm.
policies, just enough to cover student loans, cover their funeral, enough to pay their rent for the year so that their roommates weren't stuck in a
Yep.
jam. And it was like $3 a month
Mm.
for these policies. And we ended up deciding that they were cheap enough that we started going to financial institutions like a bank and saying, why don't you offer your premium checking
Ah,
accounts
smart.
a free five $15,000 policy for this audience, and instead of having to give away a month of Netflix for $17, it's three
Yeah,
dollars,
it's a smart
and you could get the
marketing
same.
director coming into play here, going,
There you
PNC's
go.
got a million bankers, and or clients, I
Yep.
guess, or users.
Yeah. So now that's really where we've been, now having like the two parallel paths of our business is like the wish side, that people can make a wish and get a policy up to $2.5 million,
Hmm.
and at the same time we're working with financial institutions to give people a micro policy for free that they
Mm.
never even had to pay
Wow. So if I went on Wish today and I wanted my body to be fed to crocodiles when I die, that's something that I
for.
could put
Yes,
in there?
100%.
Okay. They're the most perfect predator on planet Earth. They've survived since the KT extinction, man. I mean, they're going to keep on going with or
Really,
without me.
I always thought it was a hungry pig.
No, man.
It's
Crocodiles
like, yeah.
eat one time a year if they have to.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good to know.
Hmm.
All right, all right. Yep, yep. So we'll have to find a farm in the
Yeah.
Everglades that will allow
Hold on
us
before we
after
get
hours.
too far. Crocodile. I don't want gator. Gator and
Oh,
crocodile.
you're right.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get
Yeah.
South America maybe. So that's a
Now we got to go. All
bigger
right. Well, it's
policy.
probably good to get out of the U.S. Because then anything goes. There is
True.
definitely parts of the Amazon where no one will ask
That is
questions when
definitely
we
true.
toss you into the
So
Amazon.
what? Give me some heavy or like maybe not heavy hitters, but like some of the funnest or strangest things that people wanted from their wish policy, and like how like just talk me through who is trying to figure this out, and like how what are like how are we putting into a legal agreement that like Alex, yes, you'll be fed to crocodiles if and when you die, and like
Yeah.
because I'm gonna be gone, so it's like
Yep, yep. So, we'll start with the first part, which was like this, like craziest, silliest things that we hear. Uh, I remember someone wanted their spouse to get uh, uh, like training in martial arts to avenge their
okay,
death.
that's smart, makes sense.
That's what they wanted. If I die, I want to put a block of money aside so my spouse can be trained to avenge my death. That was an interesting one that I was like, solid idea. I like where your head's at.
Probably wouldn't even be as much as you might think, maybe 20 grand,
Yeah,
30 grand.
exactly. I mean, like, yeah, like depending, like, do we need to kit them up like John Wick at the end, which we decided we think we
Of
would.
course.
Um, And so we included that as part of the
Hmm.
policy, just so that there had some substance to it. But so we had that. We had a lot of people wanting things for their pets and their
Okay.
plants. There were two things we were surprised at the amount of people who wanted their pets to have an incredibly well off retirement without their owner. So whether that I want my pet to go to this crazy, part of the world, I want them to like live in this like a lavish life on a feather bed on the beach, which they always loved, and we're like, gotcha, that easy for us to do, not that expensive
Yeah.
either. And again, like all of a sudden, like people say, like, oh, the wish I would want is actually 14 grand in life insurance. That's literally $1.80 a month. Like, I'm gonna
I
get
feel
it.
like
Why
I
not?
would have fun doing this job. Just be like, you're like a professional problem solver. Like, all right, let me just find out what it's going to cost.
Yeah, and we just so we kind of have two things. One, we always allow you to decide how much you want to put aside, because some people may just say, "Hey, listen, I want $10,000 for my you know kids." Uh, uh, for like a
Yeah.
wedding. We've also had that people put like money aside for a daughter's
Hmm.
wedding, things like that, like a life moment, and just put a chunk to the side. And then we've had people reach out and ask us questions to help them figure out how much they need. But I also think we have found it interesting that people enjoy going down a rabbit hole of finding out how much they should get that policy
Mm.
for. Like, like finding out that it's only 15 grand to get a personal trainer for your wife to become a ninja. And like all of a sudden now that life insurance policy, you worked a little bit for it, like you learned something, you did something. It's almost your policy that like, yeah. So you can just imagine like how it changed how people feel about a life insurance policy once they started to make it these weird requests. We were thrilled. The weirder they got, the funner we felt. We had made the process.
Mm. Well, also, they're not going to just leave and go get life insurance from Prudential then after that. It's like, there's no
Right?
way I'm
Yeah.
not doing that.
Yeah, not at all. But we, contractually, how it works is that we, you do give power to your beneficiary. So whether, because we did have, not that this situation happened, but the question was raised by someone, which was, okay, I put in for this life insurance policy that uh, I want Stevie Nicks to play my
Hmm.
funeral,
Yep.
right? And I've got $1 million policy just for that. I'm in a car accident with my son, and he ends up being in a wheelchair, needing long term
Right.
care for his whole
Hmm.
life. And now that $1 million
Yeah. He
policy
doesn't care
is
about
going for
Stevie Nicks.
Stevie
Yeah.
Nicks.
Right.
All of a sudden, Stevie Nicks is coming for
Yeah.
$1 million, and my son is stuck with not having that. So we ended up like having to come to the solution of saying we would empower the beneficiary of a life insurance company, of a life insurance policy, to approve of the wish being granted. That so your wife, your husband, your remaining child, they had to say, yeah, let's do it for them.
Mm.
And we are there to help walk people through it. We're there to talk with those beneficiaries. We've worked with them in the past. We continue to do that. But we also have had beneficiaries say, listen, let's do the smaller version of that, because I know they would have rather, their friends have been flown up for their funeral,
Hmm.
like, and let's use some of that for that. Like things do change and life happens. And so we try to be flexible, because we did get nervous. Yeah. What if that Stevie Nicks situation happens?
Right. What about you? Do you have a wish? Have you put a policy in place for this, or are you thinking about
Oh, of
what you would
course.
do?
Yeah, no, for me, it was always I wanted I wanted a signature Cartier watch for my friends and family.
Okay. All right.
That is in my
Don't
policy.
forget about me,
Everyone,
friend right here, you
yep,
know.
I,
Yep.
I can add you
Yeah.
to it. I will
For
add
just
you to it. So
14 cents a
everyone,
month, this guy that I met on a
yeah,
podcast gets a Cartier
yeah,
watch.
gave me a Cartier
Yeah.
watch, but I just thought that'll be cool if everyone has like a little keepsake that they get, and that's significant but not crazy. And I just thought that for some reason that made me sleep easier. That made me smile, and that's all it's supposed to do.
Mhm.
Is that I wanted to live our purpose, which is I sleep easier knowing that if anything happens to me, my family's okay. Of course, I also have to make sure that my daughter goes to college. Of course, I have that wish is made as well,
Mhm.
but that's not as fun as the
That's
watches.
awesome, man. Edwin, this was super fun. I really appreciate you telling us your stories about, Letterman and Chappelle and Wish, and I love that's a if you thought through this whole with your team, this kind of idea, I think that's a brilliant idea.
Oh, thank you, dude.
Yeah, mean that. Where can people catch up with you?
Yeah, so you could, if you're interested in Wish, you could come and visit us at
Mm.
WYSH and come, like, make your wish and get your policy there. Or you could always reach out to me on LinkedIn, which is where I spend most of my time connecting with people, strangely, more than other social platforms. It's because there's maybe not as much politics on
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
yeah.
Maybe that's
There's still a
maybe that's
little,
why.
but not as much for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
So there you
Thank
go.
you so much, Edwin. I really appreciate you, man.
Of course, this was fun.